Dear learners, welcome back, and in this video I'm just going to explain about the no such element exception. So for sure, as an automation test engineer, you may come up with this exception. And do you know like why we are getting this exception? And in case if we get this exception, what are the possible solution we can apply in our coding? So that is what like we are going to discuss in this video. So now if you notice in one of my automation script, I'm just getting the exception called as a no such element exception. So obviously this exception is thrown by the Selenium. So then it indicates so some of the method in Selenium has thrown this exception. So generally while doing the coding, like we may have used the method called as a find element, and this no such element exception is thrown by the method called as a find element. And when this method will throw this exception, so whenever it is unable to locate the element right, it will throw the exception called as a no such element exception. So for sure, like in our coding, like we may have used any of the locator, and inside which we may have configured the element. So for example, like let me just take one of the existing script in my automation. Okay, let me just open any one of the method. So let's take an example. Like here, I'm just going to enter the product name in an Amazon application. So for which I have used the locator called as an ID. Now what I'm doing, I'm just updating the incorrect ID. And now if I try to run this automation script, right? So for sure, like it will fail in this particular method. So the reason is like, so this find element won't locate this element which we have specified. So that is the reason it is throwing the no such element exception. Now that is fine, but how we are going to handle this no such element exception? Now let me just look over the error and let us check whether it is throwing the correct exception or not. Yes, as expected, it is throwing no such element exception. And if you want to know where exactly it is throwing the error, if you scroll to the down right, you could able to see the exact line it is throwing the error in enter product name. And if I click on it right, so it is highlighting the find element method. So which means as a first step, like we need to always check, like are we using the correct element? So either it is of an id or the name or class name or its path. So we need to always ensure, so are we writing the correct element? Okay, so now fine, my element is correct, but still I'm getting the no such element exception. Then what is the reason? So there is an another reason. So like the element is not loaded yet. So which means the web page is still loading. And in such a situation, right, what we need to do? So we need to apply the weight. So especially like we need to apply the explicit weight. So by applying the explicit weight, right, we can avoid the no such element exception. So I will show you one example, like which is already defined in my framework. Now let me just pick one of the existing method which I have written. So now in this method, right, what I'm doing, I'm just planning to extract the text from the UI. So for which I have written the XPath syntax, and with the help of the getText method, I'm just going to extract the text. Now sometimes what happened, like this XPath, right, it is not available in the backend DOM. So the reason is like because the web page is not loaded properly. So whenever the web page is not loaded properly, I will get no such element exception. So the syntax is correct and this element is available in the web page, but due to some load issue, like due to the some slowness, right, the web page is not loaded properly, then we will get the no such element exception. So during that time, right, what we need to do, we need to handle the no such element exception. And how we can handle the no such element exception in the sense, only with the help of the try and catch block. So we are going to try something, and if it is working as expected, that is fine. If it is not working, obviously it will throw the exception, and we are going to capture the exception in the catch block, and we are going to apply the solution in the catch block. So the solution here is like, I have applied the weight. So for this particular line, I have applied the explicit weight. So which means after this particular time, right, it will check the presence of element in the web page. If the element is present, then it will continue the execution and it will extract the text. So by the way, right, we can avoid the no such element exception. So whenever the no such element exception, the first step is like we need to check so whether the locator is correct. If the locator is correct, the next thing is like if it is due to the timeout issues, right, then we need to apply the wait with the help of the try and catch block. And there may be another reason. So, for example, the element may be present inside the frame. So, for example, like let's take this Amazon as an example, and in which I'm just planning to click on this HP 350 compact link. Okay, so for which what I used to do, I used to right click and I used to insert right. So I will write any of the locator in my coding. So, but we need to always ensure whether it is present inside the frame or not. So, before automating any of the web page, right? So, we need to ensure whether the element is present inside the frame or not. How we can ensure? So, simple. I can search with the tag name called as an iframe. Now, if you notice in an Amazon application, there are more than 14 frames. Okay, so now if I just check frame one by one, if you notice this particular area is present inside the frame because it is present inside the iframe tag. So now if I need to like find this element, right, then what I need to do, I need to switch inside the frame. So one and only if we switch inside the frame, we can able to find the element. And without switching the element, without switching inside the frame, right, if you try to find the element, right, it will throw the no such element exception. So for example, in one method what I have did, I'm planning to identify this ID called as an draggable and another ID called as an droppable, but both these IDs are present inside the frame. So for which what I have did, I have added the line called as an driver dot switch to dot frame. So as a first step, I'm switching inside the frame, and then I'm just verifying the element. And if I fail to add this step, right, then obviously it will ended up in a exception called as a no such element. Okay, and in other hand, sometimes it will throw no such element exception because of the element visibility. So especially in the React application. So for example, consider this Amazon as a React. So in a React application, so generally what it happens, so if you notice the screen, right, so here certain fields are appearing, so which means till this HP compat it is appearing. So technically for the React application, so only the element associated with the screen will be loaded at the backend. So for example, if I need to click some element which is present at the bottom of the screen, right? So then what I need to do, I need to scroll down. So one and only if you scroll down, the element will get loaded. So which is nothing but the associated element of this particular field will get loaded. And if you fail to scroll down, right? So then it will end up in a exception called as a no such element exception. Or in other hand, so sometimes so the locators may be dynamic in nature. So whatever the element we are using, right, it will be dynamic in nature. So we need to ensure like we always provide the static locators while doing the coding. Okay. So if we have all these points in our mind, right, then we can easily avoid the no such element exception. And even if it is occur, we can apply the solution accordingly. So this is how like we will be handling the no such element exception in the real-time project, or even from the console, right, we will get to know like it says it's a no such element exception, but if you read that except statement, right, it says unable to locate the element. So which means it says CSS selector as a locator, and it says hash ABC, which means hash indicates the ID and dot indicates the class name in the CSS selector locator, which means it's telling this particular ID is not available at the backend DOM. Okay, so then we need to correct the locator accordingly. So by the way, like we can avoid the no such element exception. Hope you understand now. And even if you have a few more questions, right, then you can use the comment section and where you can highlight all your clarification, and keep supporting my video and keep learning. Thanks for watching this video.